Hello and welcome to Diminishing Returns. Today we're going to be returning to the X-Men franchise to talk about Deadpool in anticipation of Deadpool 2, and then pitch our own collective idea for the sequel to Deadpool, which even by our standards is pretty out there this episode. This podcast, of course, contains spoilers for Deadpool, as well as the rest of the X-Men film franchise. Enjoy! Hello, yes, today we're talking about Deadpool. I'm a smarmy Yorkshireman with perfect teeth, and with me are gruff Barnsley, man. Say hello, gruff
Hello.
Barnsley man.
Hello.
And token Mexican 7 man.
Oh, hey, Calvin. I'm sure this podcast is going to treat me with the sort of racial sensitive touch that Deadpool took towards its racial characters. Hey, man.
Do you know what I was doing there? Because obviously the credits for
Yes.
the film are, yeah.
We're being
Yes,
very
which is-
very meta as well. We're going to address the audience throughout.
Yeah. Hello,
Turn to
listener.
camera. Wink to the camera.
I bet they'll edit this out.
Yeah, I made that note immediately as well. My first note was, yeah, even the opening credits are meta. They're really setting the stall out straight away, aren't they?
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, in anticipation of Deadpool 2, which I believe is being released as the superhero movie antidote to the Avengers Infinity War, which is undoubtedly tearing up
Well,
the box office right now, and
Yeah, and I'm sure no one needs an antidote to it, because, you know...
well, you know, it's not as obviously Deadpool it's not a spoof exactly, but it's a comedy. It's lighthearted. It's fourth
like
wall
all
breaking.
of Marvel's films. Oh, right,
Fourth
yeah,
wall
no,
breaking?
No, but the other two.
But yeah, anyway, Deadpool was a big surprise hit. Yeah, I'm gonna go out on that one, actually. Yeah.
It seemed to surprise everyone, but to me it was so obvious that was going to be a massive hit. I don't know, I found it really weird that it caught everyone off guard. It just seemed like such an obvious thing to do, but it had a very bumpy road into production, a very troubled pre-production history. So, yeah, I don't know. It just always struck me like it would be a really obvious, like, successful film people would like, and for the reasons that people liked it when it came out. He first appeared in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yes, I was going to ask Alan if he, not being the comic book or superhero fan out of the three of us, if he sort of understood what this was and where it fit in, and
Well,
all those.
yeah, I know. Obviously, you had him in the Wolverine film with the same guy because he likes the character, I guess. And that they fucked that up. But that was like the proper origin, wasn't it? That's in the comic books, and this is just like, okay, we can just create him somehow, and then we'll get on.
The X-Men Origins Wolverine, they kind of got the character pretty spot on for like the first half of the film, and then they inexplicably like sew his mouth up and give him like laser beam powers and make him some weird robot, and that isn't in the comics at all. It's just some utter gibberish nonsense they just wrote into the film, and that part of why everyone was so angry with the film was they were just like, what?
But
Why
him
have you
being a
done this?
loudmouth is the whole point, isn't it? Like, he's the wisecracker.
Yeah. And they got the Wade Wilson part down, but then they didn't manage to turn him into anything even close to resembling Deadpool in that film. It was a very weird decision. So, yeah, they just kind of acted like that film never happened.
As did so everybody else.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, for the longest time, they were pushing to just kind of go ahead with this Deadpool film with Ryan Reynolds still in the role, which was an odd thing, rather than properly outright start. Well, no, it is properly outright starting anew, but they just couldn't get funding. They couldn't convince any of the studio heads, the same people who thought it was a good idea to sew his mouth up in the first place, I suppose, to have any faith in it. And it was that they did like a kind of internal teaser reel with the character that they went out and shot with their own money, to proof of concept, I suppose you'd call it. And that eventually got leaked online, almost certainly on purpose by the people who made it. Fans went crazy for it, and the reaction was enough to convince the people at Fox that this film was worth putting money into, and eventually it got the funding, and here we are.
Yeah. So this is set within the X-Men film universe, but it is sort of a sidestep, isn't it?
Yeah, because X-Men is not... When I was a boy, X-Men was not at Marvel. And now it's a mess, where some of them are and some of them aren't.
Well, X-Men aren't at Marvel, still. This is part
there's X-Men in this film, and it's a Marvel film.
No, this is an X-Men film.
Well, Disney bought 20th Century Fox, so...
Yeah, but if that deal even gets properly all the way through, apparently we won't be seeing any X-Men characters till like Phase 5 at the earliest. So
because Bob Iger said that Deadpool would be integrated within the Marvel universe, but then I suppose that might just be for the fans. But by then, Ryan Reynolds might not even be playing the
well, part. That's it. It'll probably be a fresh take on them all anyway. I think this is the thing. The X-Men universe, Fox were kind of desperate to emulate what the Avengers did, just as every other studio was desperate to emulate what the Avengers did after 2012. And you can see it in the films. They started having end credits tags that didn't really work on X-Men movies. And
they brought back the old cast for Days of Future Past to have a big team-up thing.
Yeah. And, they dabbled in doing spin-offs of their own with the Wolverine one, and there was a Magneto one in the works that never really got made.
That became First Class.
Yeah, but it's only kind of post-Marvel really pioneering the business model that they've had the faith to follow through and make stuff like Logan and this. And I think this was very much the first one that really was distinctly going off on a tangent and being its own thing, and not, part of the Marvel universe. Sorry, not part of the mutant Fox X-Men universe as we know it. Although it is, it's still part of that world. It's still part of that continuity. And that's part of why it's a very weird film, because it is a full-blown comedy, but it is set within the same continuity as Logan and all these other films, except it plays very loose with the continuity, and one of the characters is completely recast in a way where we're kind of just expected to treat him as something new. Obviously, we have to ignore X-Men Origins Wolverine altogether. There's there's been problems with X-Men's continuity for a while anyway, so it's not it's not the only film to kind of mess around with it.
Totally.
Well,
totally.
I must say, I watched this today, having never seen it before, and I was kind of looking forward to it. I thought this is a different take on things. I think it'll be enough difference to watch it. And what I really liked about it was the fact that I wasn't going, right, how does this tie into so-and-so? Captain America's done a little cameo. What does that mean? All that bullshit. And it was, like, after watching the Avengers and stuff, like, it was nice to just watch a film that was self-contained. And the references that it has are more like pop culture references. Like, he's talking about James McAvoy and Patrick Stewart playing the same character and stuff like that. Which is all a bit weird, fourth wall meta kind of, which it's not as clever as it thinks it is. But, it was, at least I felt at least it was something different. A slightly different tone. It was quite small scale as these big superhero films go, which is what I prefer. I'm not bothered about the action. I'm not bothered about seeing alien gods smashing a city. I'm all right with a fight between two guys. That's all right.
Yeah, I think you're glad. Basically, it was quite a low budget film for the kind of film that it is. So they couldn't do huge action, and I think you're pleased with that. I think the sequel almost certainly has a huge budget. So I imagine we'll get a lot more action, and you probably won't like it as much, but we'll see.
But it begins with a very, very stylized action sequence, which, even though, essentially it's just a couple of car accidents, like, it's not that major thing, but they turn it into a big thing, having all this slow-mo bit and all this CGI stuff in it. I guess that works, It's
I think it's a really good opening.
Visually, it works. So that
you've got Angel of the Morning playing over it. It's a nice juxtaposition. It really kind of sets the tone for what the film's going to be, which is sarcastic, meta, a bit offbeat. I don't know. Calvin could go either way, but I think I'm probably going to be the dissenting opinion on this film. Because in theory, I think it's wonderful that this film happened. I think in theory, Deadpool and this sort of thing, brilliant. In practice, I think this film is kind of the sort of lowest common denominator, like, hack comedy writing that, of course, everyone lapped it up and it made loads of money.
I definitely know what you mean. Yeah, I'm not sure. I enjoyed it basically, so I was okay with it. But I know exactly what you're talking about.
I watched it again for this podcast record for the first time since I saw it in the cinema, and I was focused a lot more on. I kind of let it wash over me more the first time, and I was more analysing the jokes properly this time, and it's one of these things where I like the light-hearted tone of it, but if I was to actually pick out individual jokes that I enjoyed and that I'd really stand behind, there's very few that I think are actually good jokes, and I was really looking for them after a while. I think the opening credits.
Taking the words right in my mouth.
Yeah,
that's exactly how I feel. I'm probably less gonna be less of a dissenting voice than you are. Like, I still enjoyed it on the second time around, but then I didn't really make notes as I was watching it through for this one. But then when it came to just sort of before we started recording tonight, I was sort of like, okay, well, I'm going to talk about my highlights. What bits did I think were funny? And then I could think of the opening credits and the pegging bit, which I don't know if I like the pegging bit. It's not like a great gag, but it's memorable.
The pegging bit even annoyed me, because again, it was so like, I remember in the cinema that happened, and there was this wave of like, like in the cinema of all these people being like, having their masculinity like called into question and being offended by it. And
I mean, I'm like that bit. My immediate thought was like, surely the joke there would be him going ooh, and like suddenly enjoying it. Like that would be a better joke. Plus, the idea is they're going through the year and they're celebrating the different holidays, and that one's International Women's Day, as if International Women's Day is about fucking men up the arse. Like, I don't know, that's not really what it's about. But okay.
And he's a very homoerotic character as Deadpool.
Yeah.
Well, he is
Ryan Reynolds in general is a very. Oh, is he the character?
That's what I believe.
Oh, okay, that would explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt they're ever really going to go there with the films, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I hope.
So
that'll be interesting in the cinema. Those same people, if he kisses a guy and it's not a joke.
Yeah.
So before we get into the film too much, can I just ask about Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
What's he about? What's all that about? Because I know he played Green Lantern, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, and they of course bring that up about 3 times in this film.
Yeah. And I've seen him in a couple of things, but he's like one of those people who I don't really know what I know him from. Do you know? But he always seems to be around doing something.
I know exactly what you mean. I think he's like a really inherently likable screen presence. And I think that's kind of what he gets by on, because as even this film points out, he's not the greatest actor in the world. But yeah, I mean, I have seen him in stuff. He pops up in things just for like a little joke a lot. He's done a few Family Guy episodes, and Ted he had a little cameo in. He did the film called Buried that I remember.
Oh yes,
where the entire film was just him in a coffin for 90 minutes.
Was that like the legit acting, like the Castaway?
I think so, yeah. And to be fair to him, he carried the film for 90 minutes. Wasn't incredible,
I think he first came to my attention doing Van Wilder, Party Liaison.
Oh, of course, he was Van Wilder.
And that was that kind of post-American Pie teen comedy. He fits that mold quite well. And you could see him doing like... what's his face? Jason Bateman, that kind of character, in those in Date Night and like those shitty comedies like that. But he doesn't seem to do that. I can't think of anything that Ryan Reynolds does that kind of rom-com or more kind of bromance comedy, that sort of thing.
Well, I think
it feels like that's his mold, but he's not. He doesn't quite do that.
I think his breakthrough was he did a sitcom called Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place that I've never seen, but his fans always bring up. Then he did loads of comedy, like bit parts and stuff, like Harold and Kumar and Scrubs and so on. Just little roles and stuff. And he's kind of just like forced his way into being a leading man somehow. But he has done those rom-coms, I'm sure of it. He did... He definitely did a rom-com with, like, Sandra Bullock or something. I haven't seen it, but I remember the trailer.
Oh, The Proposal?
Yeah, is he in that?
That's him, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the sort of poster. I've just looked at the poster, that's exactly
and
the sort of film.
He did the change-up with Jason Bateman. Have you seen that? That's a bad film.
Yes!
Exactly
maybe that's why I'm thinking... Okay, so he does do that sort of stuff then, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those people where... Yeah, he's like one of a few people that fits that kind of character, and I just don't quite necessarily always put their name to the face, or it's not very memorable. He's just quite ephemeral, isn't he? And then
just on Ryan Reynolds, like obviously he's very passionate about this character in this film, and he's probably a big driving force behind why it actually happened. He played the character, and when was Origins Wolverine? 2009, so like 7 years prior. Should this character have been a bit younger? Like, should it have been played by a younger man, I should say? Because Ryan Reynolds, I don't know actually how old he is, but he must be 40 plus at this point.
He's 42, and he's 41 now.
Right, okay, so he'll have been, like...
I might be completely wrong in saying this, but I don't think it really matters. I think the character's always got his mask on in the comics whenever I've seen him. I think he... really does nail the character, and if there's one thing I can really sing the praises of this film for, it's that it gets the character, and it does exactly what the Deadpool comics that I've seen do. It adapts them to film pretty much tonally as they are. Yeah,
I wasn't worried about his age particularly. I think he looks like that kind of, still looks like that mid-30s, straight down the middle kind of guy. What I did like, actually, was that the girlfriend of his character, the actress who plays her, she wasn't like 23 or something like that. She was a similar sort of age. They felt like a solid match. And when you see them getting together, and because they're a bit older, it does feel, because it's a very sort of quick montage that just shows them falling in love, blah, blah, blah. But it does feel a bit more sensible because they're older, not some bits of kids going, oh, we're going to be in love forever. It felt like these guys have got a bit of history. They know a bit about life and they've come together. And so I think that worked for me better because they were older.
Interesting.
Although she still works like in a strip club, so I don't know what age, what's the mandatory retirement age there.
My notes are so sporadically all over the place here. And it's really a lot of complaints. So
I'm not sure how much we're going to get out of going through this on a scene-by-scene basis, because the story is so bland, and really it's just a collection of comedy scenes.
One of my notes is very similar there, actually, is that every single cast member who isn't Ryan Reynolds is so generic and dull in this film. Apart from maybe T.J. Miller, who's just...
Well, even his character really falls into that character where he's like, oh, well, you should do this. Oh, okay, let's just do it.
Yeah, it's improvised for 3 hours and use
like that
10
kind of
minutes of it.
side talking. Which is fine, it works, but it's just like I've seen that character a lot, and it's always that wisecracking sort of side character.
You look like a gorilla fucked a piece of sandpaper.
That's an unpleasant thing to say.
There's I like the two X-Men that do appear in the film. There's Colossus,
Calvin,
who was
You
recast.
look like a Punch and Judy puppet. Fucked. Jimmy Carr.
So there's Colossus, who was recast from the main series because the actor who plays him in the proper films didn't like that he was going to be completely CG'd. So they got like a Russian accented man in to voice the character.
Well, see, I hate that they recast him. I didn't realise there was a proper story behind it. I didn't realise they tried to go for the original guy.
Yeah. I think Daniel Cudmore is his name. Like, this is the thing. It's like he's not the kind of actor that you'd think would turn down parts, because he thought, oh, this is beneath me. But apparently, I think it was something to do with they were going to have the character be all CG anyway, and he didn't like that. So they were like, all right, then, goodbye. And that was it.
It annoys me that they've completely re-established the continuity about who that character is as well.
Oh yeah,
I know in this film where they do it with Deadpool, like, it's silly to get hung up on that, but I don't know, it's just...
Well,
it bugs me.
I think here he's an actual character. In the other films, he isn't. He's just, a classic Bryan Singer casts a pretty boy in a... not terribly. Is that okay? Should I not have said that? Because he does it.
No, it's fine.
Right. He's in a little bit of trouble.
He's part of this Me Too scandal with
No, well, that's it. It's like,
and I'm wondering if Deadpool 2 is going to make some jokes about him raping people.
Oh God,
probably not.
But he is just that. Yeah, Daniel Cudmore is an attractive man, but probably not a very good actor, or at least I've not seen him in anything else that would suggest he is. And here, the Colossus is a proper, comic foil to Deadpool because he's sort of like your traditional, upstanding superhero who's gonna talk, speechify about justice and doing what's right and all that kind of stuff. And Deadpool can undercut that with something funny. So that's all good. I like their dynamic. I like the Negasonic teenage warhead. Sorry, I was consulting my notes.
That character, that character and that name, is that a name from a comic book? Is it a joke about how comic book names are really shit?
I believe she's from the comic.
I was going to say, I think she's a real character. I don't know if they've pulled out a character with the stupidest name possible as a joke, or if she was written as a joke in the comic originally. I don't know, but yeah.
Okay.
But they're definitely aware of how stupid it is, obviously. It's, it's like in Ant-Man when they do a joke and they're like, Ant-Man, and he's like, that's a stupid name.
Yeah.
Now we've done the joke, so you can't, everyone watching.
The human spider!
But I like those characters. I like that they go back to the X mansion, all that stuff.
Yeah. I kind of wish the film had some more ties to the proper franchise, because it doesn't feel like a conscious effort to make it its own standalone thing. It really does just feel like, oh, we couldn't afford anyone better than we've got these two X-Men, and I don't know.
I was surprised that Hugh Jackman never turned up either as himself or just for one shot as Wolverine. Because I know that him and Ryan Reynolds had social media fake feuds and that sort of thing.
They did use his face.
Yeah. But I thought he was gonna have a proper cameo. He never did.
I mean, I guess he kind of did that beautifully in. Was it X-Men?
First Class.
First Class?
Yeah, when he's in the one shot. Yeah, he tells him to fuck off.
Yeah, they're probably not going to top that.
Yeah.
By having him pop up for one scene in this. So.
And I doubt he will do again now that he's seemingly retired the character.
Yeah. Although Patrick Stewart says he's open to it, but I guess we'll get to that later. Let's see. If there's one thing that I think this film gets wrong about the character, at least my understanding of him, and I kind of wish the film had handled differently, is that my understanding is Deadpool's meant to be this guy who like almost being able to break the fourth wall is one of his superpowers. You know, it's almost like his wit and everything comes with regenerative. I can't say it. Regenerative powers and that sort of thing. So it kind of bugs me in this film that there's other characters who crack wise throughout and are sort of on equal pegging with him in terms of being funny. Not just witty, but like that metal man early, like one of the first scenes with the metal guy, it's him saying like, "Here, you must eat this. Breakfast is the most important meal of day." And it's like, this is a comedy scene. This isn't like a serious X-Men scene that Deadpool is going to crash. And the joke is that he's this funny guy in this serious world.
Yeah, exactly. You create the character that is out of place in the world. So you create a completely straight superhero film and then drop someone in who's going to burst the pomposity of it.
And that's it. My understanding is really that Deadpool's almost meant to be like The Mask. You know, it's like a normal world, a normal guy who gets turned into this character who's just like a bit of a nutcase. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like the film could have done a better job of like the minute he gains his powers also being the minute that he kind of starts turning to camera and winking. And but then obviously it plays with chronology enough that would have been very difficult to pull off and what have you. Because it's very weird how this film like is structured. We open on this car crash, then we like go back in time to like before the car crash, like a few minutes, and then we go back in time like
to set up the
2
character.
years. Yeah, but it's weird to kind of jump back twice like that, and then we come forward again, and then I don't know. It's you'd think if they were going to do it, they would just acknowledge that they were doing a flashback within a flashback, which they don't.
Well, whenever you see arbitrary structural changes like that, I always think this wasn't a very interesting script, and they've had to try and just twist it about a little bit.
One of them's only. It's only because they had that idea for the opening credits slow motion sequence and thought, "Oh, that'd be great."
But we can't
but then
start
it's
in
kind
an
of
action
jarring
scene.
to go. Yeah. Let's see. Here's a note about how much this annoyed me. So he's in bed with the love interest woman, and they're talking about Star Wars. And he goes, Star Wars. And she goes, Empire! Correcting him for getting the correct name of the film. And just not specifying that he meant Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back as opposed to Star Wars. Now, I hate this for two reasons. Because number one, he wasn't even wrong, so she's correcting him for no reason. Number two, it's this fucking trope that I cannot stand and I hate, that's so prevalent in like the Big Bang Theory and How I Met Your Mother and just real low-grade comedy. It's this idea that, wait, a woman who likes Star Wars? Oh my god, a woman who likes the most popular film franchise of all time? Well, you're gonna want to marry this one, cause hoo-hoo-wee, that's what we call a unicorn, folks. A woman who likes Star Wars, whew, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, plus it's just not realistic because no women like Star Wars.
Okay, can I get really on a off on one about something that shouldn't be a problem but really annoys me?
Okay.
And this film does repeatedly, but there's a particularly heinous example of it. So this guy turns up who looks exactly like Agent Smith from The Matrix, and is clearly being cast to look like Agent Smith from The Matrix, and then costume have dressed him to look like Agent Smith from The Matrix, and then the director has said, just do it like Agent Smith from The Matrix. And they're talking, and then Deadpool sort of goes, hey, check out Agent Smith over here, am I right? And you're meant to go, ha ha! Nice one, he does look like Agent Smith. Which I think, this for me is, this is the most perfect example of why the writing in this film is hacky. And this is actually something Dan Harmon's gone on about in his podcast. He and Rob Schrab they coined a term, the Monopoly guy, to refer to this when they were writing scripts. Alan, do you have any idea what this might refer to?
What, the Monopoly guy being the quintessential posh rich guy?
It's specifically in reference to a scene from Ace Ventura when nature calls.
You must be the Monopoly guy.
Exactly. There's a scene where this guy who's been cast, dressed, etc., to look like the Monopoly guy comes down the stairs, and Ace Ventura goes over and sort of goes, "Hooray! I'm Ace Ventura, and you must be the Monopoly guy." And you're meant to be like, "Nice one, Ace. You've put him in his place." And it's such an overused trope. Adam Sandler did the exact same thing in Mr. Deeds, when he calls someone the Monopoly guy over there. There's loads of films that do it, and it doesn't even have to be a character. There's a film called Step Sisters that came out recently, and in the trailer there's a bit with a wrestling belt looking bit of costume. This woman's wearing a belt, and she's like, "Oh, do you like my new belt?" And they're like, "Yeah. Which wrestling championships did you win it in?" And it's just kind of like, if you write something to be like purely there to then joke about how stupid it is, it's like such a cheap joke. It's barely even a joke. And this film does it repeatedly. And like I say, I think it's just the perfect summation of why the writing in this film is cheap and hacky. The Agent Smith one's particularly egregious, but there's, "You're going to leave me all alone with less angry Rosie O'Donnell." There's a lot of examples of it. That one's not as bad because he's saying she's less angry than Rosie O'Donnell, so he's at least putting a bit of an extra layer on it. But anyway,
do you think these kinds of gags? I mean, I don't know if there's much in there that's terribly original. As you've said, Saul, would this kind of thing work if you took all the superhero elements out of this film, or is it?
I was wondering this.
Does it just work? Was it just the right thing at the right time because there wasn't anything else like it?
I think that's it. I think if this was just a straight comedy and there was no superhero element, I think it would be a really weak film, and it would be it'd be like the hundreds of Will Ferrell movies no one cares about that come out every year and come and go, Kevin Hart comedies. And people would probably have gone to see it. Maybe some would have laughed. It wouldn't have left a lasting impression. It wouldn't have been very well received. And it probably wouldn't be that good. But it's because you are taking an otherwise serious genre. And I know the someone at Fox made a huge thing about, well, of course it worked, because you were taking this po-faced serious thing of superheroes and cutting them down to size. And it's like, well, have you ever seen a Marvel cinematic universe film? They're not that serious. They're already practically comedies. They kind of know their place. But like you say, I think it hit at the right time in the superhero
and this one was doing jokes that Marvel wouldn't do. This
That's
was
the other
sort
thing.
of
The R rating is a huge part of...
Not that it was as, shocking, because I was the same as you, so I saw this in the cinema, and it was there was not only laughter, but there was, real, real, noises.
They shot him in the bum!
Yeah, exactly, and it's sort of maybe we're just... I don't know, if something is, really getting off on its own ability to shock, as I think this film does, it's tough when we've seen things like Pink Flamingos and John Waters' Fair, which is some genuinely shocking stuff.
There's nothing here South Park hasn't done, It's really not that... If they had the Prophet Muhammad show up in the middle of Deadpool, then maybe I would have sat up and been like, "Ooh, wow, wasn't expecting that."
It's just how safe it plays it with its shocking humor, and I put that in quotations because I don't know if there's much of it. And I just find that annoying because it does pull punches. It isn't quite as outrageous as its fan base would make it out to be. I don't think.
I think you've made a point there. It made me think of something that I think if I'd watched this film in a cinema with an audience who were laughing and reacting, I probably would have hated it. Because whenever I see that mob mentality of people enjoying something, it just makes me feel.
I really like the montage song in Deadpool. I think that's when it's kind of operating at its best. They have this stupid little rap over a montage with Deadpool rapping about how great he is. And even that isn't amazing, but that's kind of when the film's like operating at a level where I think, yeah, all right.
I know what you're talking about. Like, there's, you know, the bit where he cuts off his hand, and so the hand grows back slowly. And so for a while he has this little baby hand. And when he like caresses this woman with it, it's kind of really weird and creepy. And I thought that was quite funny. But then they had to draw too much attention to it, and he said like he was going to...
Yeah. That was exactly the sort of thing. If that had just been his hand for the rest of the film, it would have been really funny.
That
but
is
instead...
like a character in Scary Movie 2. There is a character and his thing is that he just has a little hand. And he like... Yeah. And so that just made me think of that.
But if the whole thing had been, like, they don't even draw attention to it, and that is just his hand for the rest of the film, and it's kind of subtle, that would have been a great joke. But it's because, like you say, they make a big thing out of it. They're all like, he's wanking with a little hand.
But yeah, and he says, like, oh, it's going to feel huge in this. But then at least go through with that, and then, like, go like, oh, he can't get it going because it feels like he's being wanked off by a child. Like, at least follow through on the joke. Like...
Can we talk about the taxi driver who...
Yes, I've been saving this note, but yes, I was astonished by this character when I watched this film, and I still can't quite fathom that this character was put in a mainstream film in 2016, and there hasn't been...
Why would you get Hank Azaria to play it, though? I don't understand why they did that.
I'm not even necessarily saying there's a problem with the character, just that, like... I cannot believe there hasn't been more of a backlash against it. Given the backlash against Apu, for example, from The Simpsons, and various other characters, and insensitivity with Hollywood whitewashing and casting in general, I cannot believe this film just does the most ridiculous, like the most obvious blatant stereotype of an Asian character, Dopinder, the taxi driver. It's a guy doing the thick accent. I'm sure the actor doesn't have that accent in real life. I mean, I don't know, but I just couldn't believe they were so kind of unaware in such a meta film to not even draw attention to the fact that they were. I kept waiting for the joke about how. The actor doesn't actually have that accent, or how he's like an outdated stereotype. But instead, the character's just like really badly treated by Deadpool, kind of shifts into this like beta male servant mode of just like, yeah, you don't even have to pay me. Like, I'm just in awe of you, Deadpool. I think you're brilliant. Not even Deadpool, Mr. Pool. I think you're so great, Mr. Pool.
Well, you can't do that.
Then is like completely unhinged later on when he like kidnaps someone, and I think perhaps that was them trying to give him his character development and maybe not being, but even that just plays like he's some creepy foreign guy. Nothing about this character works, and I think it's quite it's just remarkable that it exists in this film in 2016. I
couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
Well, speaking of weak supporting characters, he lives with this blind woman who that never really goes anywhere. This character, and we're not. I don't know if that is that from the comics, maybe, and they just didn't get into it.
I think it must be.
Because it just needed that. She just needed more time to say things, to do things, to create a character. Or
I think I base this on nothing, but I'm almost certain she's in the comics. I don't think Dopinder is. I might be wrong, but
we haven't really talked about the main villain, played by Ed.
Ed Forgettable.
What
Ed.
A dull,
the most banal, bland character ever.
The blandest villain. Yeah. It feels like they deliberately cast bland actors in a lot of these supporting roles, just because... Well, I mean, first of all, the budget, I guess, wasn't there to cast big stars or anything.
You don't need a big star though. Just pick someone with a bit of personality, an unknown actor.
Yeah, you're getting a British actor. Get like the cream of British drama who hasn't broken America yet to come and be.
Yeah, don't tell me you can't afford to get Toby Jones doing an Austrian accent or something. Come on.
I think I recognise his face. Is he a model or something? Because I don't know if I've just seen him in crap films or what, but
he has got that kind of rough and ready model look.
He just seems like the kind of actor who would be perfectly cast in like a direct-to streaming, low-budget action film or something, as like a hench person or a villain or something.
He seemed like someone that I would cast as Jason Statham's body double for when he can't be asked to stand on set when they're doing the lighting.
Oh, well, it's funny you should say that because I've just looked him up on the whatever this thing is, IMDb. And one of his film credits is The Transporter Refueled, which appears to be a reboot of The Transporter with him instead of Jason Statham.
No way. That is insane.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Okay,
I don't know who else I'd cast as a young Jason Statham, so... Nicholas Hoult. That's who I'd cast as a young Jason Statham.
Yeah, his other name is the Dinner Lady Pimp. Like, he's some kind of musician, apparently.
Okay. Yeah, alright.
Anyway, that's more interesting than he deserves, actually. That's something.
Anything else?
What about the director? Who is he?
Tim Miller?
Yeah.
Oh, Tim Miller. Yeah,
Is he connected to TJ Miller?
Oh.
I don't think so.
Not coming back for the sequel, oddly enough.
No, he's busy directing the next Terminator film. It's a solidly directed film. It's got a bit of flair here and there.
This is the thing.
Decent effort.
It's another one of those things where it's like the whole thing is fine for a certain kind of person, just not really for me.
Yeah,
this kind of humor isn't, it's not my cup of tea, quite frankly. And
it's just a bit lowbrow. And I love meta self-aware humor, but I need it to be a bit more clever than "G'day, mate, I'm Hugh Jackman. Wank my balls off, mate." It's just like, which is, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically a joke in Deadpool.
I think this character would work better in a straight film where he pops in, punctures everything, and then pops out again, like an ensemble film, like The Avengers, or something, where you're
like
not
The Avengers.
Yeah, you're not having to concentrate on him completely. He just comes in, and like in the same way that Iron Man was grating on me after a while, like the way Robert Downey Jr. does Iron Man. In The Avengers, it's okay. It's diluted, It's So.
I completely agree, and I know that they're kind of building to him being part of an ensemble very soon. He's in something called the X-Force in the comics, which is one of the many, many superhero teams like the Avengers. And I believe the X-Force is being assembled in Deadpool 2. But
yes.
They're also working on an X-Force spin-off film, which is quite bizarre, because if you're going to do it in Deadpool 2, how's that going to be distinguishable from Deadpool 2 and 3 if it's just another Deadpool movie? I don't know. But
I read an interview somewhere, I can't remember who it was, a producer, writer or whatever, but they were talking about how the X-Force is going to spin off and become a bigger, sort of grander franchise, but the Deadpool films are going to stay sort of lower budget, smaller scale, and that's going to be the distinction between the two of them. It's weird that they're cross-pollinating like that. I mean, I don't know if X-Force is going to be like R-rated fare, but I find it curious that they would launch a franchise that maybe have a slightly different target demographic than this.
It's interesting how much of the X-Men franchise is going R-rated, though. I'm glad it is, because it means that they are able to offer something genuinely different from everyone else at the moment. But obviously with Logan, it meant that we got a legitimately mature superhero film, and with Deadpool, it meant that we got an incredibly puerile one, but even the next one, not the next one, but the one after, New Mutants, which they're making as a horror film, very consciously, it's going to be a horror film, but it's an X-Men movie, and it's kind of like the horror of becoming a mutant, I think, almost. I think that's a really great way to find new life in an oversaturated genre, but certainly a genre that has plenty of corners to explore.
Yeah.
And, it's a great way to set themselves apart from what Marvel is doing, which, because they've pretty much nailed that, family-friendly, squeaky clean superhero thing, so...
Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah. Speaking of what Marvel's doing, Josh Brolin's playing the villain in the next Deadpool film as well.
Oh. That's interesting.
It's odd, that, isn't it? Thanos and Cable. Cable, of course, being set up in this film's post-credit scene. Did you enjoy the post-credit scene, Alan?
This is my favourite bit.
I was going to say, it's one of my favourite parts of the film. Yeah.
Did you see it, Calvin?
No, I didn't. No.
Oh, did you not?
No.
It's just like a shot-for-shot recreation of the post-credit little joke from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, basically. Deadpool comes out wearing a dressing gown. What's he say, Alan?
I read about this. Sorry.
You're still here? No, go home. It's the end of the film. That's what Ferris Bueller does. But in this one, he says a bit more.
He does that, and then he just goes, oh, by the way, Cable's going to be the villain in the next one. We haven't cast him yet, but it'll be cool. All right, see you. And
then at the very end, he sticks his head back out and goes, "Bia bow bow," which actually made me laugh more than anything else in the film. But that would have been
that's something we used to do a lot when we lived together, wasn't it, Alan? I don't even know why.
But that's definitely...
How did that even happen? How did that start when we do that?
But that's definitely something.
It was like a call and response, though. One of us would go bow bow, the other one would have to go.
That was definitely something where I was waiting for him to go, get it? It's Ferris Bueller, see?
Yeah.
It was like they have to hammer everything home, but they didn't, which was good about it. I do have one more thing I want to mention. And when integral part of the story is that he gets really fucked up, like, due to this mutation, so he looks really weird, and so he can't face going back to his girlfriend because she'll obviously be completely repulsed by him. And like he walks down the street and people are like, oh my fucking God, look at the state of that guy's face, man. And I just think if you're going to do that, you need to make him look really fucked up. You can't make him look like he may have had some minor burns. Like, because it's not even...
I agree.
Like, you really have to make...
comics, he is more of a...
Yeah. Like, if he has to walk around with a mask all the time just because if he walks in the street, people stare at him, that's why he couldn't face going back. I can see that. But as he just kind of looks like he's got that kind of old age makeup on.
Yeah.
You know? It looks... Yeah.
I thought that in the... Is it near the start with Dopinder? He says something like, oh yeah, well look at this, and pulls his mask off, and you're meant to, as an audience, go, oh my God! But you're kind of just like, what, has he been in the bath too long? Like, what? What's wrong?
But yeah, if you've ever seen people with like serious facial, like when they've been burned or something like that, serious facial injuries, and it's considerably worse than that, it can be. And you know there's people that exist out there, and if you saw them walking down the street, you might go, oh God, they must have had some sort of accident. You wouldn't like whisper to your friend, oh look at that guy, what's fuck his face, really fucked up. Well, maybe some people would, but
look at that guy, it's a monster.
Yeah,
it's a real life monster.
But we had this same discussion when we did Frankenstein, and it was with the Robert De Niro one where he plays this monster, and it's like he just looks like a big guy with a couple of scars on his face. It's like you've got to be more fucked up with that if you're going to have people recoiling in horror.
At least Frankenstein was set in the olden days when you can believe people were easier to freak out.
Well, no, everyone
Now
was
you
fucked
just
up
sort
back then.
of get people walking down the street and sort of looking out of the corner of their eye and trying not to look for too long and looking away, but they're still kind of fascinated and want to look.
And a 5-year-old just staring, and then the mother kind of like ushers them along, like, don't look. It's rude.
Exactly.
Did Calvin? Did people used to do that to you
To me?
before you got your teeth fixed?
Oh man, TJ Miller would have a field day with those teeth, Calvin. He would improvise for I think he'd go for a full 10 hours on you.
I can
those teeth.
Well,
definitely
they're all
a Stonehenge
fine now.
joke coming in.
Calvin, can you do a good TJ Miller impression? He strikes me like someone that you'd be able to do an impression of.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't even think of his voice right now, which is weird because he's been in so much that I've seen.
How does he? He's kind of like.
He's
He needs
kind
a
of
drink.
sort of like, I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. What was that?
I don't know.
Dude. Whoa.
Keanu Reeves. Anyway. Shall we rate? I guess it's a 6 from me. I did enjoy it. It's fine for what it is.
Well,
It's
Yeah.
a
nothing else to
7 from me.
What?
Well, yeah, it's
A
kind
7?
of- well, yeah, I enjoyed it in that
Everything's-
very base level way.
Oh, fuck.
Well, I said I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but then you were going on, I'm going to be a dissenting voice on this. My notes are nothing but complaints.
Yeah,
And
because
then...
I I can sit through it and enjoy it. If this film had been what I think it was for Joe Public, I'd be giving it an 8 or a 9. If it had been that for me, I would have, But I saw through the cracks, guys. I know your game. That's why it's only a 7.
Alan?
well, I gave it, and I do feel like I was being very generous here. And I'm sure if I watched
God.
it again, it would be lower. But I gave it a very low 8
Huh.
because I enjoyed it.
That's a respectable score overall. Then
I'm
this one, too.
surprised. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to call out the problems I have with it and address the flaws, but it's all right. It's not a bad film. It's entertaining, and it did come along at the right time, and well performed from Ryan Reynolds, and good on them for getting behind it finally over at Fox.
So, should we talk about the sequel that's upcoming?
Yeah,
I'm
I'm not terribly excited.
I'm really unexcited. I'm really uninterested. I just don't care.
And I've seen the box office projections for this, and they're saying that, it's probably not going to do as good as the first one, and I can't imagine it will, because I think the first one was just, it came along at the right time, and it is going to be a case of diminishing returns for any sequels.
I do think it's going to be one of those things where they're like, they like this kind of joke. Let's do that 5 times. They like this reference. Let's do that 5 times. I feel like it's
Do you
going
think
to
there'll
be
be
that kind of
some
sequel.
Austin Powers-esque, let's literally bring back loads of jokes from the first film and do them even longer type bits as well? I see, with a film like this, I was really hoping they'd be like, right, we've kind of dipped our toe in the water, it worked, now we can get really off the wall and have some really obscure references and really freak them out a bit. But I don't think they're going to. I think, like Alan says, it's going to be very they enjoyed this, let's do that even more. Let's play it safe again. Let's kind of... And the trailer certainly, suggests it's going to be very much more of the same. Other than this villain in it, Cable, who we're meant to all care about, because fans of the comics care about him, I think. But, I don't care. He's a guy with a robot arm. All right?
I have no idea. I've not even seen a trailer. I've seen
watched
posters, but yeah.
I watched one of the trailers purely because in fact, I think it was a teaser trailer, purely because he was doing a parody of those Bob Ross painting shows. Have you ever seen those? Where
Is that the ones that they watch in Peep Show?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
And the trailer was just Deadpool with a wig on, painting in that studio, made to look exactly like it, going, okay, we're going to put a little bush over here and paint a tree here, a nice little tree, and then they had some quick cuts of actual shots from the film, and But that's the sort of thing I like, because it's a fairly obscure reference compared to anything in the first film,
that's exactly what I think is not an obscure reference, because that's practically
it's not obscure, but
that's exactly the level to the first one. That's exactly the demographic they're aiming at, though. Like people who go on the internet and look at memes and go, "Oh, I remember Bob Ross. Yeah, he was. Do you remember him? No, I was not old enough, but I've seen him. I've seen him on the internet. I've seen clips of it.
I don't know. I think doing a full blown Bob Ross recreation is beyond anything in the first film with regards to it being a bit out there, and I think that's probably just because it's the trailer, so they felt like they could be a bit more weird and avant-garde with it. It's it's obviously not that obscure or weird, but it is compared to anything in the first film. I do quite like the idea of being in a packed cinema and then, this trailer comes on and it is a guy dressed as Bob Ross painting and, but, yeah, I just think the new one's probably going to be very much more of the same. And I hope I'm wrong. It doesn't have to be. It could be, great, but...
I was thinking, I guess this will take us into a discussion of our own ideas, I suppose, but Ryan Reynolds... He's got the talk, right? He's got a kind of that pattern. He's got the personality, but I just feel like this character would be better served by someone, say, like a young Jim Carrey, who can completely kind of embody a character.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think he's just a bit too normal bloke to pull off Deadpool. That's fine when you're being Steve Perry or whatever he is when he's not Deadpool. But when you're Deadpool...
Wade Wilson.
That's it, Wade Wilson.
Steve
Perry.
Steve! but when you... And exactly, I'm using Jim Carrey as an example because of The Mask. He plays Stanley Ipkiss or whatever that character is. And he's kind of an eccentric character anyway, but then when he becomes The Mask, he's completely over the top. And it feels like it needs that switch, maybe, or...
Did you know, Alan, that The Mask was based on a comic book series and is arguably a superhero much in the same way Deadpool is?
No, but I'm not surprised. That makes sense.
That
it's based on a comic book.
Yeah, he's very much the same kind of archetypical thing as Deadpool, really.
But I'll tell you what sort of really made me think about it. It's when he's trying to fight Colossus, and it breaks his wrists every time he hits him, and then he breaks his foot. And I could see Jim Carrey doing that because it was such physical comedy where his hands were flailing about.
Hasn't Jim Carrey done that exact thing in a film where he hits someone and then he's like on the ground grabbing his hand?
Well, that's like Ace Ventura, I think. That's an Ace Ventura thing. But that was the moment where I thought that's physical comedy that Jim Carrey would really blow out of the park. And I'm just using Jim Carrey as an example, but I think that's a real personality that's one in a million, really. Whereas Ryan Reynolds is more like 1 in 1,000.
I do agree with you. I think that the reason people were so behind and are so behind Ryan Reynolds is because he played the character in X-Men Origins Wolverine, where he was just like a normal guy, and it was a far more not grounded exactly film, but it wasn't this Deadpool showcase. So he was going toe to toe with the other people in that film, and it was an otherwise serious film, and it wasn't a full on Deadpool thing. And I think people were so disappointed that he did a good job playing the character only to get his mouth sewn up that they were completely on board with then having him get a proper chance at doing the character properly. But no, I do agree with you, Alan. I don't think Deadpool necessarily needs any physical comedy about what he does, but I do think perhaps... But then this is it. Who would you even... You'd probably have to cast an almost unknown, really. Or get someone off a sketch show like they did with Jim Carrey for The Mask, I guess.
So what would you do for a sequel? It's tough because there is very little story anyway. It's just Deadpool gets revenge on a guy.
Yeah. It's going to be sort of concept-driven, whatever it is, I think.
Well, this is why I think...
a very Go on.
I think in terms of if we're pitching an idea, we should try and do something different. Like not just what's this, because the sequel is just going to be more of the same. It's like here's a villain he's going after. But what basically what I was thinking of was if this film had been made earlier, like maybe 15, 20 years earlier, and it was the Kevin Smith written starring Jason Lee version of Deadpool, because but there was bits of this where Ryan Reynolds really reminded me of Jason Lee. And I was just thinking, I wonder if you'd get a young Jason Lee and Kevin Smith writing it.
And you know what? Ryan Reynolds would be a great Dave Chappelle or whatever he's... No, not Dave Chappelle. What's he called? Dave Seville in the Chipmunks films when they reboot those.
Yes. But yeah, I was thinking that. And then you get like the young Ben Affleck in as the villain or something. But yeah, doesn't this sort of thing strike you as something Kevin Smith could be quite good on the writing team?
Yeah.
Like he would bring the right level of pop culture to it, and
it's his writing style. You need someone who's going to do the kind of quote unquote witty put downs and pop culture references. Yeah. Although Kevin Smith's
shocked
a
by
bit
some
more...
of the things in Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Shocked in what way?
Well,
in the way Deadpool didn't shock you, is that what you mean?
Yeah. It was more shocking to see that man get pooed on than anything in Deadpool.
To me, the obvious way to follow up Deadpool was you bring Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine for one last hurrah. That's obviously not going to happen at this point. I think he's done and dusted with the character. Having seen Logan now, I'm kind of glad that that's the end of Wolverine, and
yeah. I think the way that film was received and lauded, that's the line under it that Hugh Jackman needed. If it hadn't gone that well, he might have gone, "Oh, let's do something else." But because it's like you go off on a high, like do that, boom.
But Patrick Stewart said he was up for it before changing his mind and kind of going back and forth on it. I do think I do struggle to think of anything that would be better than a kind of Deadpool Patrick Stewart buddy cop team up film.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Patrick Stewart is a funny guy. He's a really funny man, just like in his normal day-to-day life. He's done so many examples of like comedy now. He's a very good comedy performer. I think he could really go toe-to-toe with Ryan Reynolds, and it'd be a whole new side of Professor Xavier that we haven't got before. And I don't think it's going to taint the legacy in quite the same way for him. He isn't defined by Professor X in the way that Hugh Jackman is defined by Wolverine. So I think we should get Patrick Stewart in whatever we do.
So are you talking about having Patrick Stewart as Professor X, or are you talking about having Patrick Stewart as Patrick Stewart?
What about both?
Even
Can we make both work?
Oh, right.
Deadpool goes to Hollywood.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's it! Oh my god! We get Hugh Jackman in as Hugh Jackman, but not as Wolverine. I bet you he'd do that.
Yeah, definitely it would.
Ooh, yeah.
Deadpool goes to Hollywood because they're making a Deadpool film, and
Deadpool needs to recruit Wolverine for his superhero team for some very specific reason that we set up. It has to be Wolverine. He can't get him because he's retired or something, or he's dead, or he's in hiding, or whatever. There's a way to kind of do a meta joke on him being in hiding, but yeah. And so he goes to Hollywood to kidnap Hugh Jackman to dress him up and pass him off as Wolverine.
Because he just needs to look the part. So he's like, don't worry, I'll do the fighting, but I just need you to look like I've got backup.
Deadpool and Wolverine are like quite closely linked characters, I think, because they both have the same regenerative superpower is their kind of main thing. I think.
Well, they're both kind of part of the Weapon X program, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, so they're quite... I think they've got quite a bit of history in the comics. No, I really like this. He goes to Hollywood, kidnaps Hugh Jackman. Maybe...
Patrick Stewart has to come and rescue him.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, James Marsden, Halle Berry.
Well, no, we don't. No, we don't want James Marsden or Halle Berry. Wait.
Oh.
But Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen on a road movie where they have to go and rescue.
Oh my
Hugh
god!
Jackman.
Yes. Yes.
And you could have it that Ian McKellen's just drunk all the time, and Patrick Stewart has to do all the driving. It really pisses him off.
Are they preparing for a play they're doing together as well whilst they're on the road? So they're
yes, and so they keep doing they keep reading through lines while they're doing it.
Oh, this would be amazing.
I actually love the sound of this. Yeah,
and I think near the end it should become apparent that he can't just pass Hugh Jackman off as Wolverine, so he actually has to put him through the same process that Wolverine went through, giving him adamantium bones and everything.
What if Ian McKellen always carries around a pug?
Now
that'd be fine.
Does he do that in real life? Because it seems like something he would do in real life. I can completely believe it.
I just like the idea that Ian McKellen is just really annoying in every way, and Patrick Stewart's having a pub with him.
Ian McKellen strikes me if you could tell me Ian McKellen has an Instagram account that he started that's wildly popular, and all it is pictures of his pug. That's all he posts, and I would believe you.
And it's just pictures of novelty egg cups that he finds in charity stores.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so they're on the road.
I'm actually having a look now.
They're on the road. They're touring Comic Cons throughout America, and so they're trying to save money. Patrick Stewart is driving between them, and so. But Ian McKellen insists on stopping at every Walmart that they pass, so that he can buy a keychain of the local area as a souvenir. What about if while they're traveling, they have to stay in motels and they're sharing a room to save money, and Ian McKellen keeps making over the top, deliberately flirtatious things because it winds Patrick Stewart up.
I think
I'm not gay. Everyone thinks I'm gay together with you. Stop it.
I think what would be better is, not even that, but when they're checking in, Patrick Stewart's really insecure about the fact that it looks like they're gay, so he's kind of going out of his way to be like that episode of Extras where Ricky Gervais is with Ian McKellen trying to appear to be straight in front of his mates, and they're so he's really going out of his way to be like, oh, look how straight I am. Ooh, did I ever tell you the time about when I had sex with Beverly Crusher, who's a woman that trying to make out how straight he is, and then Ian McKellen's like, come to bed, darling, or whatever. And he's like, oh.
There are some really sweet photos of the two of them on Ian McKellen's Instagram account. There's one of them at New Year's Eve pulling crackers together and then wearing the paper crowns.
Well, they're really good friends. Do you know why?
Yeah. Why?
They have similar personalities.
They like each other.
Things, same thing.
Yeah, but they were doing a play together, and I think it was Ian McKellen basically.
You like novelty egg cups too?
He basically said to him, "Look, for this play, we need to be ridiculously close and know each other inside and out because of the play we're doing."
And he's like, hey, what are you going on about? I've heard about your type.
Well, no, he basically said, so look, I'm renting this apartment near the theatre. Come and live with me for 6 months or however long it is in rehearsals. And they just moved in together for the rehearsal period and lived together as old roommates. And they're best mates ever since, from what I gather.
Aw, that's sweet. They are really nice. I know that Ian McKellen got officiated or something so that he could marry Patrick Stewart and his current wife.
How much?
As in, perform the ceremony, not marry
both of them. Yeah. How much younger than Patrick Stewart is his current wife? I bet it's considerable, isn't it?
I think she is 45 or something like that. Let me have a look. I need to. We've pitched a Deadpool sequel where we all seem very disinterested in Deadpool and more interested in Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
Well, the way we've gone, we've basically cast Deadpool as the villain who kidnaps Hugh Jackman, and then we spend most of the time with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen on the road,
isn't it?
Trying to track him down in between Comic-Con appearances.
Oh, here's an age gap for you. Patrick Stewart is currently 77. And his wife is 39.
Classic.
They got married 5 years ago.
It's good. I love it.
To be fair, though, Patrick Stewart doesn't look a day older than he did in the 80s, so...
Yeah, but to be fair, in the 80s he looked 67. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's the trade-off. One of my exes did that. She aged like 10 years overnight, but now she seems to be sat at that level for like forever, so it's
a bit like how Sean Connery went from like young to old, but then he stayed like a good kind of old for.
That's
like,
just because he
40
stopped
years.
wearing a wig. That's why it happened overnight.
Do you think we can get Sean Connery out of retirement for this film we're doing, Deadpool 2?
I bet Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen would hate Sean Connery. They would not get on.
It would be a great cameo where the two run into... They're in a casino or something on their road trip and they're like, oh God, oh, don't look.
Sean.
Oh, Sir Patrick, it's me, Sean Connery. Fancy seeing you here. Yeah.
No, I think Sean Connery would hate them. He'd be like, a couple of fags.
They don't play golf. They do Shakespeare plays and stuff. They're not real men like Sean Connery.
Bloody Shakespearean actors. One of them tried to touch my arse in 1962.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Okay, so the Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, Buddy Road movie. Deadpool 2.
Titled Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
I think that would be a genuinely good subversive bit
That
of
would be
comedy.
more
I do.
meta
I
than
think it'd be
they
brilliant.
do.
And I think you just need to get the right person to helm it.
Helmet.
You need someone who's good at you need someone who's good at like. You need someone who's good at improv-based comedy, but like not being too self-indulgent with it, reining it in.
I think we should hire the Lego movie people.
Oh, you know what?
And then
Yes.
fire them halfway through production.
Yes.
And get someone else in to make sense of it all.
I think we've got a good basis there. I think we've got Patrick Stewart, Ian
think so,
McKellen, road trip to stop Deadpool from turning Hugh Jackman into some sort of abomination by putting like he's just gonna. I don't think there's any adamantium left, so he's just gonna like ram like garden like washing line poles into Hugh Jackman's body. So that on the X-ray it'll look like he's got adamantium bones.
That's it from us for this week, but if you'd like to hear more Diminishing Returns, then you can head over to dimreturns.com to find previous episodes, over 100 at this point, as well as written reviews, top 100 movie lists, and plenty of other good stuff. So long for now.